Hello everyone, and welcome to this California Adventure series. Thanks to the Ortho sceneries, very kindly put together and made available by Forkboy, I've recently come to appreciate the incredible variety of colors, terrain and sceneries California has to offer. But I've realized that being at 30,000 feet at 400 knots doesn't really make it justice. Now, to make the most of it, I decided to plan a trip touching all corners of California. To do that, I needed a plane small enough to land in some of the smaller regional and municipal airports, sometimes in remote areas of the country, but powerful enough to get clear of the often dramatic terrain we'll encounter and able to get us around quickly enough. I couldn't think of a better candidate to do that than the TBM 900. Now, there isn't one day that goes by without us reading somewhere someone claiming the TBM is the best aircraft ever made for Explain 11, and although I don't have the experience to make such a statement myself, the series will be broken down into 8 episodes, touching 9 different locations. We will start in the south at San Diego International Airport, over here. For the first leg, we will travel north along the coast, and then get off the coast and head for the island of Santa Catalina. This very dramatic airport perched on top of the cliffs. We will then head north to reach the foothills of the Sierra Nevada at Kern Valley Airport. The third leg will see us crossing the mountains to Mammoth Yosemite Airport. An absolutely stunning remote location. Before heading for the crystal clear waters of Lake Tahoe. After that, we will make a stop north of Sacramento at Oroville Municipal Airport. Followed by the 6th leg, which will take us to the Trinity Center Airport in Northern California. We will then head for the coast and visit Shelter Cove Airport before starting the last leg of our journey, and after a low-level pass over the Golden Gate and into the San Francisco Bay, we will end our trip at Half Moon Bay Airport. Now, this is not intended to be a fully technical tutorial, as I am not a pilot in real life, but I will be following as much as possible all the procedures as per the original TBM 900 Pilot's Information Manual, so the manufacturer's manual. For the sake of fluidity and brevity, though, I will not be following dozens of checklists too closely, so I apologize in advance if I will forget a switch or two here and there. This is intended to be a fly-along video that will give you the opportunity to familiarize yourself with the aircraft, and hopefully by the end of the series you will have learned a few things as well, having visited some stunning locations and used a variety of planning, autopilot and approach methods. But now, without further ado, let's step into the cockpit and get going. So here we are. We can now power up and configure the plane. So we'll first load it onto the payload, remove the covers, the weight, pitot, static and the engine covers. Load the plane. I've loaded already over here. We have pilot, co-pilot, no passengers for today, a little bit of cargo at the back and forward cargo. So that's already. In terms of fuel, we need 360 kilograms, so that's roughly 95 gallons. We'll put 100 just for good measure. That's already including contingency, final reserve and an alternate, so it's more than enough. As always, do remember to check that your fuel caps are closed, so make sure that this window is closed and you cannot see the quantity anymore. That's it. Then we start our flow, checking that everything is turned off the way it should be. This is probably the only plane, well, definitely the only plane I know that keeps the state of the plane the same as you left it on your last flight. So it is actually here is not redundant to check that the switches are off like it is in any other plane, but it's a good habit. So we go left to right on the top, so all the lights are off, external and internal, electric panel is all off, engine start, ignition should always be in auto unless you've done dry motoring like I did. Fuel selection is all off, autopilot trims is off, this is on 0. As you can down, do check the circuit breakers. They are all individually modeled and they actually do function, every single one of them, so do check that they're okay. Alternate static, emergency ram air, conditioning panel here, the bleeds are off, pressurization mode stays into auto, bleeds off and air conditioning is off. Then over here, never touch the throttle while the plane is off, so make sure it's in the off position, closed. Manual override is off, gear is down, parking brakes are off at this point, and all the de-icing system is off. Now let's check how much battery we have. Crash bar up, source on battery, can start powering up all the systems. Can put the nav light on, just to signal that we're in the aircraft doing stuff. If you have long configuration to do, you can start with the GPU outside. You can rent it for $50 an hour, likely the virtual dollars. But it is quite noisy, and if you close the doors with only the GPU on, you cannot put the air conditioning on. So it'll get
aural warning, okay,
very hot very quickly, and the plane starts telling you. So it's not a very long config to do today, so I'd rather start the engine as soon as possible. Now let's check that we have the volts to do that. If you go here, you need to have at least 24.5 to start on battery. We have 25, so just enough to do that. So before we start the engine, we triple check that the manual override is off, that the throttle is cut off.
Pause system test, okay.
Turn the strobe on. Auxiliary fuel pump goes to on. You can hear the wording. That's an electric fuel pump. Check, of course, the propeller area is clear. There's no ties or covers. There we are. We bring up the timer here because we need it for the startup of the engine. It's a good habit to press here at the display back up so that you have the engine values over here, just in case there was an electrical fault and you lost this panel while you started the engine. It's very important that you can monitor what's happening, whether you have a hot start or any problem with the engine. Replacing an engine is $1 million, so even though it's virtual money, it's better not to have to do that. We do that, bring up the timer. We hold the start for a couple of seconds and then release it and start the timer straight away with enter here. We wait for 13% NG. That rose quite quickly. As soon as we have 13, we can introduce fuel to low idle just a notch. Now we're waiting for 30% by 30 seconds. Monitor the ITT rising, it doesn't go above a certain limit. And then we need 50% by 60 seconds. And we're all good. So ITT, we're checking that it stays below, rule of thumb below 850, it can stay at 850 for a maximum of 20 seconds. And it can reach 1000 degrees, but it can stay there only for 5 seconds. If these conditions are not met, you need to abort the startup procedure. Here it's all good. Oil pressure is in the green. The starter went automatically to off, so we're good. All the engine parameters are good and in the green. So now we can put flight idle. Keep checking, all the parameters are good and in the green. The only one that will not be now is the prop up, yeah, and that's it. Let's close all the doors. And it's a bit more quiet. There we go. Can still hear the pump going off in the back, so we put it to auto. I'm sure it's always on auto. Now we check that the generator is on main, because we're still not producing electricity, let's say. We're still on the battery. Generator to main, and now you can see the volts going up. Amps are quite up, quite high, because the battery was quite low. Now as we recharge the battery, it should start coming down. Now over here, we put the fuel selector to auto and check that it's working. So you can see here it's on the left tank. We press this button, shift, and it goes to right. Press it again, and it goes to left. And that's good and working. Autopilot trims on. Come on the center panel. Bleeds on. Aircon auto. Hot airflow, you find it normally default in the middle. For normal flight it goes all the way to the right. You switch it to the left, you can hear it gets a lot more noisy. If you have misting on the windscreen or some condensation. Here we check the lights, light test for the landing gear, light test for everything else, it's all working. And there we go. So now we set all the instruments. Start with the PFD. Well, we check the QNH. Now QNH is going to be standard for all these flights. I've debated long and hard about it. I really like to use real weather. The many reasons why I'm not going to do it on these flights. Well, it's just we want to see the scenery, so there's no point of having clouds and not being able to see the scenery. Then another reason is that there are a few airports where, because of high terrain on one side of the runway, you can only land on one runway. So we don't want to have problems with the wind, and most of them don't have. I don't think actually any of them have ILS precision approach. So we cannot really have low clouds or anything like that to avoid surprises when we get to an airport. I'm just going to keep the standard weather, nice and sunny, KAVX conditions, and that's it. So we won't bother too much with the QNH. Then we start from the left, at the bottom from the left configure, inset this one over here. I normally leave it decluttered, there's no point in seeing these things, you have a much larger map there. We just leave it decluttered, around 20 miles, and you can leave it with the terrain on or the topographic view. Terrain gives you a little bit more visibility of everything. Go back, PFD, so this part, the winds are already displayed there. normally you would find it, you might find it with these not showing. So you just press TME, bearing 1 and bearing 2. Today we're going to be working with GPS, so we press bearing 1 once again and we have the GPS there. Then we go back. If you need to change the units of the QNH, you press Alt unit and then you have inches or hectopascal. And transponder, we're not on that sim, we won't be using it. I'll spare you a few clicks, and for today we won't be using it. Otherwise you can just set the code over here as you need, and then set the status going back into transponder and setting standby on or halt. That's it, we can stop the timer actually. You see, wherever you have this blue box around something, that's the cursor that you have at the moment. So we reset it and hide it. PFD is all good. Now check the FMD, so the middle flight display. Again, we're going to be flying in GPS, and this is really not that visible. So although I like this screen, this color pattern, with the topographic, let's say, view, I just better to put it into terrain. As you can see, you can just see a lot better, or to topographic. Okay, leave it in topographic and this one into terrain is fine. At least we can see where we're going. That's one. We'll declutter it a little bit as well. Not really too concerned about airspace and etc. in a simulation. There we go. Let's check briefly onto the system. So here we press system and we check the electric system, that the amperes are not too high. As you can see, they've come down, so within reasonable ranges. Above 50 you shouldn't be taking off, let's say. So you need to make sure that these are around 20 and the battery is normally is between 10 and 15, 16. You can check as well the standby generator by putting this one on standby. It's okay. And we put it back on main. Fuel is what we expect it to be, and that's all good. Now let's bring out the flight plan. If you have an old flight plan, just press menu, delete flight plan, and there we are. Just have the origin. Press the center of the button here, the cursor. There we are. Got stuck for a second there. So go to the first waypoint, check our flight plan. So no departure procedure. I'm gonna go directly to Mike Zulu Bravo as the first waypoint. So Mike Zulu Bravo. If you have a fourth letter, just delete it with backspace. And that's it. Mission Bay, San Diego. Makes sense. Enter 1, enter 2, and we have it there. Second, we're going to be taking an airway. So we just press menu. Go down to load airway. Victor 23. And we're going to Oscar Charlie November. There we go. Load. Go at the bottom. Load another airway, Victor 208. Victor 208. And we go into Sierra X-Ray Charlie, which is just next to the airport. Load. And then we just put the destination. Okay, Kilo Alpha Victor X-ray, Catalina, enter, enter, and we're all good to go. There's no altitude presets. These are populated only if you're doing a star or a SID. Otherwise, they're all blank, and you can fill them yourselves if you need to. We're just gonna see what happens on arrival, and we're just gonna set those. So we're scrolling through quickly. All makes sense. There's no discontinuities. Nothing there. It's all joined up, and it's all good to go. Press flight plan again, and we're out. Now, as we're here, we're checking the trims. So takeoff in the green, aileron right in the middle. Rather, it should be in the green, but from my experience, it pulls quite a lot to the right. So I tend to keep it roughly in this area. Just gauge it yourself, and of course, depends on the wind as well. At this point, the inertial separator comes on. Foreign objects, as far as I know, are not simulated, so there's really no risk of doing any damage to the engine if you leave it off, but it's nice to simulate as it affects the performance of the engine as well. Now we check that we have everything configured here on the pilot flying display, especially all the autopilot options. So we need to put our initial altitude, and here we'll put our cruise altitude that today is going to be 14,000. Do not forget to set your altitude here. Whenever I got into trouble with the TBM, it was on takeoff, activating the autopilot, and the autopilot pitching down because I set 0 feet here. So do make sure that you have that set up. And then we need to set up runway heading. We'll be departing from runway 27, and I believe that's 275 over here. So heading, we'll set it to 275 is set here. So at this point everything is set for the autopilot. We just come to the throttle here and we press the toga button here. That one sets the autopilot mode. So you have takeoff, flight director, and takeoff. So this is the lateral part of the autopilot, let's say heading or nav and etc. And this is the vertical. As just a quick one, whatever is in green is what is active now and the autopilot is doing. Whatever is in white is what the autopilot is looking at doing next once the conditions are met. So the condition for this one is 14,000. Once we reach 14,000, the autopilot will revert to altitude hold. Get in the habit of ignoring these buttons. They have lights on them, but they might as well not have them, because if you trust the lights here, you might get into trouble. This is what the autopilot is doing, not what the lights here are telling you. Always check that once you press the button, whatever you wanted to do appears here on the autopilot section here. And that's it, we're good here. Now we can do different tests. They are on the manuals, like you could do a test of load, so you can put all the IC systems up and checking that the amperes don't go above 200, and we're good. And then we can do the feathering of the engine. We could do it close to the runway, but want to do it here. We're out of the way, we're not occupying the taxiways or anything. So what you do, you just move the throttle to the right, propeller feathers, RPM falls between 400 and 500, and at that point you put it back to flight idle, and it will go back to in between 1100 and 1200. Normally do it twice, but we'll save a few seconds here. Now we turn the taxi light on, we're about to taxi. set the parking brakes. Remember to set the parking brakes. This is not enough. This itself doesn't do anything. You need to hold the brakes, press the brakes, and while you hold it, turn it to on. At that point, that just keeps the pressure on the brakes. Remove the chocks. Just checking the flight controls. It's not like they're ever going to be broken, but you never know. You might have your joystick, your USB disconnected, and that will be a bad surprise when you start taxiing. We can put as well the pitot heat, both of them on, and then we're good. Now on the CAS, the advisory system here, you should have only parking brake and inertial separator on. That's all you should have at this point. We can start taxiing. Now we're on flight idle to taxi. Flight idle, your joystick or your HOTAS control, the throttle should be around about halfway. You bring it back and you press the reverser button. That puts it into taxi range. Try and taxi in taxi range and not in a flight idle. That's a bit too powerful, flight idle. There we are, we release the brakes. And we start moving. Unlike airliners, we do not lower the flaps while we're taxiing. In reality is because there's a big propeller that might throw rocks onto the flaps, and we want to avoid that. There we go. We'll hold here for a second. Set our parking brakes again. There we go. Check again. The de-icing system is all okay. Put landing lights on. Nav and strobe are on. This is all set. Autopilot trims are up. Everything else is okay. All the values are okay. Amps is below 50. Battery is nicely charged. There we're good. If you really want to be thorough, you check that the passenger table is stowed. The trims are okay, and we are good to go. Double check again. The autopilot, takeoff, flight director, takeoff, 14,000, and you have runway heading over here. Altimeter setting is okay. Double check always the altitude as well. It's a nice cross check to do. San Diego is at 17 feet, and here you have 20 feet and 20 feet on the standby. It's bigger increments, so that's all good. Parking brake off, and we line up. There we go. Just so everybody knows, I don't know if it's the TBM or my throttle, it's very difficult for me to control the throttle in the TBM. It's very, very erratic. so I cannot control it that precisely. Sometimes I move the throttle a little bit and this one doesn't move. Sometimes I move it a millimeter and it moves by 5, 6, 7%. So I won't be as accurate as I wish I was. As we're lined up, we hold the brakes, increase the throttle to around 50%. I wish I could do that. There we go, 50%. We check the prop RPM is in the green. Should be in the green as you're with 45 and 55. It's in the green. This is a long runway, so we can first release the brake and then increase the throttle to just below 100. Make sure you do not pass 100. There we go, keep it on the center line. Wait for 90, and 90 knots, we rotate. Quick tap of the brake to stop the wheels, and raise the landing gear. Onto the flight directors. So we start 10 degrees climb to begin with. Above 115 we can already retract the flaps. Activate your damper and autopilot. There we go, we're on autopilot. Now we'll start on heading. We're not on intercept course for the GPS track, so what we do, we press the center of the heading button to synchronize the heading with where we're going now, then activate heading. We want to start increasing the speed, so we put it on vertical speed and wave it here, and we lower the vertical speed to around 1,300 feet per minute to start gaining speed. Put the headphones, feel a little bit more quiet. Now we want to start an intercept of the GPS track, so we start turning the heading knob. Try and intercept that. Best rate of climb in the TBM is 124 knots, but it is very performant, this plane, so you don't need to climb 124. The other option as per manual is 170. So we'll tend to climb at 170. We don't need to get there, up there that quickly. It's important that we start covering some ground as well, so 170 is better. I normally personally put it in flight change and then manipulate the speed with the vertical speed with a scroll wheel here. So I put it on 170 and that's it. We're about to intercept, so I'll just press nav. As you can see, nav is in white. We're still on the heading mode. Nav is in white, so it's ready to capture the nav track, let's say. It will do it automatically, the same way that now we're on flight change mode, and altitude is ready to capture the 14,000 feet. So we captured the nav track. So autopilot is very, very, very smart. I love the way it works. Now we can put the inert separator off. We need to be careful. At this point we need to try and maintain between 90 and 100, but once you switch off the inertial separator you start getting more air into the engine and the torque will increase, so we need to lower it slowly before it goes through the yellow and red, so above 100. We monitor as well the ITT. Generically speaking, we don't want the ITT to ever go above 790, but we'll try and keep it around 750, 760 maximum. Look, the torque is increasing very quickly, so we keep bringing it down until it stabilizes. After that we will need to do the opposite, because as we climb air will be thinner, the engine will be getting less air, and the torque will go down. So do not let this plane climb on its own and go for a coffee, because as you increase altitude you will lose a lot of torque. Something wrong with my flaps going on there, and they were down again, so that's why we were not climbing very fast. I might have pressed something by mistake. There we are. As I said, it's climbing quite quickly at 2,000 feet per minute. There we go. Now we can check our flight plan. There is an arrival procedure once we get there to Catalina. Let's have a look at that. Sorry, arrival is an approach procedure. It's not purely visual. So you have a VOR. Actually, let's do this one from the other side. There is this procedure over here. So you go onto the VOR, and then you have a standard procedure. It is quite long though, and at the end of it, you're really offset compared to the runway. So I might not use it and just do a manual procedure. So at this point, our last waypoint before the airfield is the VOR, and we will turn right and fly over the airport. I think that's good. I believe we're landing on runway 22. Yeah, runway 22. Runway 22 has a right pattern, so we can just overfly the airport and then turn or reciprocate on 40, fly out, and then base and final. We might do that. We can do that 1,500 feet above airfield elevation, which is 1,600. So let's say we'll cross this waypoint, so the airport at 3,100. So 1,600 plus 1,500. So we go here on our flight plan. We select here, and we put 3, 1. It's already multiplied by 100, so 3,100 feet. Press enter. At this point, the VNAV profile will work automatically. It will calculate when is your top of descent, so it tells you, I'm going to give you the data to be at 3,100 feet at this waypoint. To do that and descend at 2.5 degrees, you're going to need to start your top of descent at 10 minutes and 30 seconds. There we are, above 10,000 feet. We can turn the lights off. Check. As you can see, as I said, the torque decreased quite a lot as we were climbing. So we put that back up as close to 100 as we can. There we go. We double check the landing field elevation. That's important for the pressurization of the cabin. So if we hide the flight plan, just increase the range of a little bit of awareness of what's going on there. There you go. If you go into system, so you press here, highlight system, and then you have LFE. You can select in manual or FMS. We have the FMS programmed, so we use FMS. Otherwise you can do manual and set it this way. So it's already automatic. FMS LFE, Kilo Alpha Victor X-ray, 1600. We know that's good. That noise was us reaching our flight level, 14,000 feet. Time to monitor as well. Again, the torque. Maximum speed allowed in the TBM is 266. We're not in a rush, so there's no need to reach that, but we'll try and settle it around 210, 220. Keep monitoring the autopilot constantly, making sure that it's doing the right thing. So it's on GPS and altitude, maintaining for 14,000. Now normally at this point, just to avoid forgetting it later, I would already select the altitude, the next altitude that I want to be at. But as we're here, I'll just show you a little something. If you miss it, what happens? And now you can recover it. That's it, it's going well. Keep our flight plan. We can change the view of our flight plan, so instead of having this view, we can move it to wide on top. Then we can scroll down through the points with the outer wheel of the knob here, and you can see the estimated time en route and the estimated time of arrival. You can press cumulative, and the estimated time en route is total, so 12 minutes to the airport. Two minutes to top of descent. The airplane will automatically sound a warning at 1 minute. Will be a recorded message to remind us of the vertical track. That's quite handy. But it does tell you only once, so you better be there when it does that. We'll check the fuel. 72 gallons. Are we good? Almost 1 minute.
Vertical track.
There we are, vertical track. So it's reminding us of that. I don't know if this is realistic. I find out that sometimes, most of the time, I cannot activate it before it's at 30 seconds from top of descent. So we'll activate it with this button here, the VNAV button. We'll wait to be below 30 seconds. Temperature is okay, 690. Torque is 90%. We're good. Below 30 seconds, we press VNAV and check over here the box. VPath. So as we said, green is what it's doing now, maintaining altitude of 14,000 feet, and VPath, it will intercept. Now normally, if I set the altitude correctly, at top of descent, it will automatically start descending. But as you can see, it isn't. Now it says bottom of descent, not top of descent, and it tells us that we are 250 feet high, so we missed that. So that's what happens if you don't set the altitude. What we can do, set the altitude now, go down now. We can see that our path is here. This little magenta sign is where we should be, so it's below us. So now we put it on vertical speed, select vertical speed, and select slightly exaggerated vertical speed, let's say 2000 feet per minute. Bring the throttle back to make sure we don't overspeed. We manipulate the vertical speed knob enough for us to see the vertical deviation to start decreasing. So that means that we'll eventually intercept the vertical path. If we're lucky enough and this autopilot is clever enough, you can see V path is still there. So it should, once it reaches the vertical path, it should re-intercept it automatically and switch the vertical mode. So that's very handy. 250 feet to go. You can see this is coming up. Let's see what happens there. There we go. Automatically switch to V path. Don't even have to worry about that. Altitude is in white because again 3,100 feet is what it will intercept and maintain once we're there. Let's go monitor the speed. There we go. We would check the QNH now on the arrival airport, but we know of course it's going to be standard 1013. When you're on the main display, of course, you press flight plan to bring up the flight plan. And then you press it again to have a vision of the map. Then the inner knob over here, you can turn it to have a look at what happens with the transponders or the TICA system. Turn the knob again, you have for weather, which, well, we might as well have off today, of course, not having any weather, but otherwise you would just put into mode and then switch on to weather over here. This one you would do it just before departing. And then one more click and you have, this is the terrain. So it would show you here if there's any terrain, even though having the virtual cockpit over here, it does show you here as well if you are at risk of going to smash into something, basically. Still at 200 feet, maintaining the speed. Send it below 10,000, we can put the landing lights on. as we slow down, we bring this up. For those who don't know, this is shows the angle of attack of the plane. It's very, very good to make sure you don't stall. Normally you have, well, different ways of telling that you're about to stall, but they're all quite close to the actual stall itself. Well, this is a visual system that anticipates a lot of the problem. As you slow down, this will start filling up with all the bars. There will be all green, yellow, red and blue bars up to the top, and as long as all the bars are there, you're good. Then once you start increasing the angle of attack, the bars from the bottom, the green ones, will start disappearing. So it will show only the yellow ones and the red ones. If you start losing too many bars, you're going to stall. So very simple. As long as you see green, you're okay. If you don't see any more green, you're in trouble. So especially on approach, always keep it up. Remember, the speeds for the TBM, having only 2 flap settings, are quite easy to remember. It's 178 and 122. So below 178 you can put flaps takeoff, so flaps 1, let's say, and gear down, and below 122 you can put flaps landing. The approach speed is normally 85. It does depend a little bit on weight. You can check the performance charts, performance tables, but a rule of thumb, 85 is approach speed. Absolutely invaluable as a tool for this plane is the manufacturer manual. You can find it online for free. That's really, really handy. And it's, where do we have it? Let me see. Maybe here. You will find the file is actually called like this, Pilot's Information Manual from Tire TBM Socata. And this is 847 pages. Not as daunting as it sounds like. This mostly about normal operation and normal operation extended. So it tells you everything from external inspection to shutdown and secure, every single procedure. If you read it a couple of times, it's not that long. You can do it as you fly. And you get to be very proficient very quickly with that. There we go, we're about to approach the VOR. We're descending. So 040 will be the downwind leg. So we will do a heading of, I would say 355 to start intercepting the downwind leg as we fly over the airfield. I've landed here already a couple of times, but I've never tried to do this kind of approach, so we'll see how it works. We're on GPS, so we can already set the heading where we need it to be. Set it on 355. See if we can see the airport is over there. This is an add-on from a freeware scenery from Mr. Ace. It's really well made, nicely done. So, set heading. Sorry, I overflew a little bit. I was busy looking at the airport. Anyway, head for 355. Stay there for a few seconds. Say 15 seconds from now. We're holding at 3,100 feet, so this is an altitude. Holding 3,100. Start slowing down to around about 180. As I said, I'm not a pilot, so especially these fine, very specific procedures might not be as realistic as they could be. I tend to just go a little bit with common sense rather than following manuals and etc. Okay, we can turn for 040 if I stop zooming out. This knob always gives me a problem. I end up zooming half of the time. So lucky enough to have the airport as a waypoint in the GPS, so we can see the distance from the airport here. It's around 5 miles. I like to give myself a little bit more time here to do my visual procedures, especially because as I said, I struggle a little bit to control the speed, so I prefer to have a little bit of leeway. Okay, redo the timer. Anyway, we can start our turn. We need to lose 1,500 feet. We need 4.5 miles to do that. The airport is there. While talking, I overshot a little bit those. Seconds that I said I was going to be on 355, but we're good. There we go. We can see already the puppies. I'll take my control now. It's always a good habit to disconnect the autopilot from here. And we'll start slowing down. Reduce the torque. Below 178. Put gear down. Flaps take off. Once you put the flaps down, they're very draggy. So you start losing speed very, very fast, so you need to be careful with that. Now we start descending. Okay, try to get below 122. We're a little high. We ballooned quite a lot. I keep forgetting how much it balloons when you put the flaps down, but we're good. Below 122. Put the flaps on landing. Inertia separator, actually, we could have put it on if a little earlier, but that's it. Just watch the speed. Between 85 and 90 will be good. We're high, but as we said, it's very draggy, so not be a problem losing that altitude. Trim is very responsive in this plane. It takes very little.
500.
Try and keep it 85. Start the flare, close the throttle, and deplete down a little bit of speed. There we go. We want to land around below 80 knots. We put it in reverse. Don't need to use the brakes too much. Then we'll put it back on flight range. "70 knots is the minimum speed you want to land at, but you don't want to land at more than 80 either, because otherwise you're going to do a three-wheel landing, which is, well, as you know, strongly frowned upon. There we go. Put it into taxi range. There we go. This beautiful, beautiful airport. As we taxi to the stand, we can put the pitot heat off. Can put the strobe off, landing light to taxi. If you had the radar on, we will put that to standby. I believe it does it automatically. There we go, we turn here. It's very easy to taxi too fast with TBM, so be careful to keep always the speed in control. You can see here. There we are. There we are. We set the parking brake. Cancel the master warning. The engine needs to be at idle for at least 3 minutes before you shut down. So let's just bring the flaps up, which bad again we should have done as we left the runway. Should have been roughly 3 minutes since we landed, so we can put the throttle to low idle. It needs to stay there for 15 seconds before you turn off. Make sure we turn the aircon off. Over here, bleed and air condition. Taxi lights, we can put it off now. It's been 15 seconds, so we can shut it off now. Auxiliary fuel pump, switch it to off. We don't need it anymore. The trims are pretty much where they should be, so we can leave them here. If there was a big discrepancy, we would reset them so that we don't forget for the next flight. Inertial separator goes off. Make sure these are all off. Parking brake is set. This is all off. We have none of the circuit breakers came up during flight, which is good. Autopilot trims. Fuel pump back to manual. Crew oxygen is good, is off. Here it's all good. Remember the lights. Switch off the panel lights. All these lights are off. And the landing light is off. Crash bar down. And the plane is off. Now, if it's not exactly in the position where you want it, you can use a little motorized card, however you want to call it, and it's a bit tricky to use because it's in the payload. No, where is it? Over here, toe at the bottom. You can use it here, and you can move it with your throttle, but it doesn't work with the parking brakes on. So you need to go in, deactivate the parking brakes, and then quickly get onto the toe. And that's it. Throttle forward goes in reverse, and then throttle neutral, like flight idle, is stop. And then you can turn it using the whatever you have, the pedals or the joystick, the twist joystick. There we go. And then we set the brakes again. Put the chocks, can release the parking brakes. And then do make sure, never forget, to actually put the ties and caps. It will tell you we'll set when the engine is cooled off, but do remember to do it. Otherwise you might find, I believe it builds up humidity into the engine. When you come back you need to do dry motoring. It's just waste of time. Then you put all the covers, pitot heat as well, static and wake. There we are, here we are in Catalina. Finished the first leg of our California adventure. Thank you very much for watching. I'm looking forward to continuing the trip. On to the second leg with you. Thank you guys. Bye now.